question for Alicia on referral programs. So you had a $100 referral that was given to your past guests to give out to their friends and family to use. Are you tracking that in any way so that it's like unique codes and then trackable back to the individual user who got it? And how do you do attribution on that?
Actually, yes. Especially this year, we added this feature of the postcard because we always track it, because when someone comes with the referral program request, we know that they're coming from for that specific program. So we know the referral program is working, but what we didn't know so far was which kinds of customers were referring the best, and the ability to segment this and follow better. So that's what we designed in this kit. So each postcard actually has a single code that helps us track from which client it's coming from, and then you can better assess like which clienteles are the most efficient and for which it makes the most sense.
Just quickly, is there a specific technology? Is this thing on? Is there a specific technology you're using to deliver the unique referral codes?
That's a good question. I know it's our printer directly who knows how to deliver those programs, so I can dig further, but I don't know the name, but yes, the printer does that for us, actually.
Anybody in the audience? John, I saw you nodding when Rita was talking about being a content publisher. What were you thinking?
And this kind of relates back to the presentation earlier from was it Palace?
Yeah.
With the we're in the early stages of creating a community currently. So currently it's just the Hostelworld blog, and we're very much in that publishing space. We've ramped up in terms of people to provide more and more content. But the holy grail here is to get to it being self-driven by user-generated content, which means that you have to solve all of those problems about moderation and quality of content. So just nodding in terms of, yeah, we've got a long way to go there yet.
And do you have hostels in North America? Or?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Not enough of them. And we've been doing quite some work with, we're 4 years into legislative process with the City Council in New York City, because their legislation, they brought in legislation specifically to deal with Airbnb, and it's just wiped out hostels in New York, which was obviously a big revenue stream for us. But there's great hostels in Miami. Freehand are a big brand. David Reuter owns USA Hostels that are San Diego, San Francisco. There's plenty of good hostels in North America and Canada.
And Rita, you're in the U.S., but it's really a non-U.S. brand. Are there challenges that you're finding that your colleagues in Kontiki and other markets scratch their heads about? And this really applies to all of you, I mean, is there anything unique about the North American market? Obviously for Club Med, they're well known in Europe. Kontiki's, anything different here that makes it harder to do relative to other markets, or?
Yeah, for us, just as I mentioned earlier, we do have a brand awareness factor, especially for millennials, 18 to 35-year-olds, ones that are travel intenders. But for us specifically in the US, the really biggest factor is the fact that we don't have as much vacation time as those outside of the US. And so we're seeing that the trips that are being top sellers are the ones that are under 14 days with kind of that 2-week time frame. So that's one of the challenges that we see, but we're able to work on it through product integration and making sure that we're supplying trips that are shorter time frame. I would think that the other challenge for us in the States, as far as in addition to, in comparison to the other regions, would basically just be the fact that millennials are just a little bit more hesitant to actually travel overseas than to have a typical vacation where they say, yes, I travel, and they go to Cabo or they go to Vegas, or they go to more of a staycation, if you will. So I would say that would be a little bit of a different challenge for us than the other regions.
You don't have any itineraries in North America?
Oh, we do.
Oh, you do?
Yes,
Okay.
we do. We
Okay.
do. And we do see that Americans are buying Kentucky in the Americas, but that's not as high of a percentage. Most of our travelers will go to Europe. That's our kind of our bread and butter. And then Asia, we're seeing a bigger spike in Latin America. But we do operate in North America as well.
And then Alicia, if you mentioned your Dominican Republic property, you have other properties in the Caribbean, but are those primarily European visitors going to those, or are they majority Americans going to those?
It depends on the properties. We have 8 properties in the Caribbean. I'd say most of them would be a majority of North Americans. So Canada is a big share of market for us as well. But some of them are historically also properties where European and French market goes a lot. Like Dominican Republic in particular is more half and half, and Cancun as well. But on the other hand, other properties like the one we have in Florida, Sandpiper Bay, is 95% North American. So we also, one of the challenges that we have in North America is also to handle this duality in clienteles at the properties. And because what would attract Europeans is not necessarily the same as North Americans, so that's why like the content also has to be localized on top of the awareness issue that we have in North America, which is not the same in Europe.
And I see them nodding. So content localization is a big thrust for all 3 of you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've one more question back here. Steve Pinchuk. I know Steve, so I'm going to throw it. Oops.
Light is very
Hey, good catch.
I can't even look. I have to look.
Which end do I talk into?
The microphone.
You guys have all talked about user content generation. Do you monitor and sometimes reply if you get someone on user content that's just trashing the property? Or do you let it go?
I can answer part of that. So for us, we actually have a trip hashtag for each one of our trips, and we encourage our customers when they're on trip and post-trip to use that hashtag and post their experiences. And so yes, we do monitor. We do heavy monitoring on social. We do kind of a follow the sun on social as well, where our Facebook is a global group. And what we do is, depending on which region is awake, we will monitor, and then we will do kind of a round robin depending on that time of day. But we do get really close to the forefront of responding to our customers specifically. For UGC, we have a tool that we also use. I believe Stackla is the one that we're using currently. And so that helps us manage our UGC efforts. And we do respond at times where we feel like we need to.
So you guys see the question there on the screen. Maybe we could start with John. How did your content strategy impact loyalty? And how did it impact revenue? You said one thing was fairly recent, so it's too soon to tell, John, but anything else there?
and our content strategy, I mean, there's a few different questions here. One is in terms of reviewing the properties, which is an interesting one, I think. We've had a hostel review. It was almost one of the first pieces of functionality we built on the site. So it's probably 15 years old at this stage, and we've 50.
Hostile or hostile?
Hostile.
Okay.
Hostile, yeah. We've been known as Hostile World. Occasionally we try and drop that one. But, you know, so our review content is incredibly important as part of the acquisition funnel, and our customers use it a lot. As a result, anything that gets published on a hostel, in terms of a hostel review, we leave up there, right? And it's up to the hostel to address that. Now, the one difference between ourselves and TripAdvisor is to leave a review on our website, you have to have made a booking and you have to have stayed there. So there's a natural way that we prevent for fraudulent bookings and fraudulent reviews being left on the website, which is very important. Our content strategy we see as completely different. That's our blog. That's our customers talking to us about their experiences. Yes, some of it's to do with the hostel, but it's more about their trip and what they've done and where they've eaten and the photographs. And that's very new to us. You know, it's really in the last year and a half we've started putting a lot of effort into that. But that's way further up the funnel. That's really up in terms of brand awareness rather than acquisition, yeah.
But have you moved the numbers on the issue of high acquisition cost, low lifetime value?
We have, but there's lots of different parts to play in that.
More work to do.
Where we're really starting to put a lot of our data science at the moment is understanding what we call a contribution model. So rather than talking about last click attribution in terms of where we're acquiring customers, what we do is we look at the customer journey to making that booking and what were the various touch points, be it paid search, be it display, be it blog content, and therefore ascribing value along the journey. And we find that it's about 20% of all of our customer acquisition is related to our content strategy, yeah. And
how about you, Alicia? Have your emotional bonds translated into dollars and euros in terms of loyalty, or not yet, or?
I'd say repurchase for us is pretty stable, but it's also, if you look more precisely into it, we see like very different behaviors among our consumers. There are the very club medders that continue and keep on going, and that we just need to keep in touch with them, and they are already very attached to the brand. And for the others, like, it might be more of a challenge, and which is why content is there to really keep the interest in the brand, because they have so many options out there, and especially in the Caribbean. So we really try to play and to develop also like our content around novelty marketing, like showing them what's new on our properties, new destinations, and also something that is maybe a little bit different from other all-inclusive brands in North America is that Club Med is present all around the world. So it's also one of the things that we do, that we are seeing like great progress in the repurchase, and thanks to developments of niche markets like ski I was talking about, or even sun going to Europe or going to Asia, thanks to our brand. It's not necessarily an option that they knew they had before, so thanks to those methods, at least they know, and it helps getting the share of market.
And Rita, I think you talked about this. Anything you want to add there? You showed some ROI numbers on some of the work that you've been doing. It's moving. It's been positive, right?
It has been positive.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we've any questions from the audience? We've got a couple here. Why don't we take one live? Because I think the second question up there was addressed a little bit by Pixley. So who was it here who wanted to? Ready?
John. As a typical hostel customer, tends to travel a lot through Europe or stuff. How do you suggest new destinations, new hostels to someone who's in Rome, for example?
Well, we're probably 3.5 years into a really active CRM program. We're fairly strong software partners with Adobe, so we use their software to target it quite a bit. But realistically, when you look at our product, it's a very urban-focused product. Gateway cities are very important to us. So it's really, again, that comes back to our content strategy and the inspiration of having a blog and having users communicating. You know, once we get that community up and running, that will be part of the inspiration for them to seed, well, I've just been to this hostel in Peru, or I've been to this hostel in North America, or wherever it is, and create the inspiration that way, yeah.
Now, is that content strategy then, is it more for acquisition, more for loyalty? Because there's a question up here about acquisition.
It's part of the brand, it's part of the brand piece of acquisition. So that's always been very difficult to measure, but what we actually find is whatever we do, and we put display advertising in our brand bucket, the more we spend on brand, the more efficient every single other acquisition channel becomes. So you see the efficiencies in PPC, you see the efficiencies in SEO, everything else becomes more efficient the more money that you put into brand.
Become more efficient, but it hasn't diminished.
It hasn't diminished.
Right, how about you guys, same thing? I mean, content is not allowing you to spend less money on Google, right?
Correct. That's definitely exactly what he said, John. with the whole assisted conversions, all of that, we have to look at all of it together, because at times when you are pushing out any type of content, you may look at it and just say, last click conversion, we didn't get anything off of that. But if you actually removed it from the entire digital ecosystem, you are going to see a different effect that's happening for it. So it's assisting other conversions, and we're definitely seeing that.
Same thing for Club Med?
Yeah, and the way we see content at Club Med is more a tool, a brand and marketing tool to assist all channels. So here in the presentation, I focused more on what brings loyalty and attachments to the brand, but we really also use pieces of content to prospection and acquisition. So it's really, and even the way we are organized at Club Med, each channel, like CRM, like digital, media, PR, they all work, we all work hand in hand together, and I'm really at the, I'd say at the cross path with all of those channels, trying to figure out which content they actually need to make sure their channel are effective and have the right tools. So.
Great. Well, we need to start wrapping up, but the questions are coming in. So real quickly, Rita, the UGC content monitoring tool that you use?
Stackla, S-T-A-C-K-L-A.
And then why don't we just do a quick round robin to wrap up, which is that final question. What percentage of your overall market, without getting anything too proprietary, are you spending on content marketing? What would you say, roughly?
Not enough?
Not enough?
I like that answer.
Could you be a little more vague? Any last-minute burning desires? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in the big round of applause for John O'Donnell of Hostelworld, Rita Kelly of Kontiki, and Alicia Javelin of Club Med.